Happy 50th anniversary Earth Day. No, the Earth is not 50 years old, just our awareness to protect it. In 1970, a global movement was born out of concern for the state of our planet. Today, we have more reasons than ever before to be concerned. But we also have a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge that we can implement into our daily life so that we can honor Earth Day every day in our hearts, in our minds, and also in our backyard. So starting a garden can be a little intimidating. We may feel like we don't have a green thumb. Mine are dirty right now. Also, we may feel that it's too difficult, that we need a big space to plant. All of those are reasonable concerns and they're very legitimate. So I wanted to show this learning series, part of the Earth Day learning series, to show you the other side of gardening, the side of gardening that is fun, that is doable, and that's what we're doing here. Oops. So the joy of watching a seed and having it sprout from a tiny seed into a fruit-bearing plant, there's nothing like it in the world. It gives us such a sense of accomplishment, and it also endears us to the natural world. It helps us to really appreciate the entire ecosystem that it takes to produce our food, from the tiny ant to the butterfly to the bee to the hummingbird. All of those are part of the ecosystem that is set in place for us to be able to grow our own food, have a sense of accomplishment, feel empowered that we can sustain ourselves, and also do something that is good for the planet. Understanding how the natural world works is part of the beautiful thing that makes us connected, and it keeps us in a very symbiotic and a very harmonious way of interacting with the planet and with our world. The path to a successful vegetable garden is not hard and it's not long. These seeds are zucchini, and I planted them about maybe 10 days ago. So with just some natural care, they're sprouting. I planted a few seeds, I wasn't sure which one was gonna germinate, so I went ahead and planted a few, and it appears that all have germinated. So from here, it's just a matter of transferring them into a larger container, perhaps planting them onto the earth itself and letting it do its thing. Really, all I'm gonna be doing is gonna be supporting it by watering it and by just kind of removing any competition from weeds that may be trying to steal its nutrients. So let's go ahead, let's get started. So welcome to my garden. I'm really excited about sharing this experience with you. Really, the first step, I want to get right into the steps because they're so simple, and then later on I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of how simple the steps are. So I'm going to actually show them in action. The first step is location. So just like in real estate, location, location, location. And one of the components about location is sun, right? So the idea that plants need a lot of sun. They need between 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. You will see that my garden is behind this west wall. So the sun sets in this side, but that means that it's facing the east. So this east facing direction allows my plants in my garden to have this morning sun exposure, which the plants absolutely love. The other part of the second component of the location is accessibility, water. We want to have access to water source. I have several options for water here. So I have a hose that goes from, that reaches all the way to my garden. It stretches out about 100 feet. I also have irrigation, and that I set it so that it comes on once a day. And I'm also, when I'm on vacation, I set it to where it comes out more often. So the source of the water is very important, just as important as the sun. And the third component of location is accessibility. We want to be able to access the garden, because if it's burdensome to get to, we're probably not going to want to spend some time in it. We want to consider that it's easy to haul in soil amendments, like big bags of soil that we're bringing in, right? So gardening is definitely not for wimps. It requires some muscle and it's a true workout. We also want to have accessible tools, so the tools are close by. I have my tools around the sink along with my hose, so everything is really accessible to me. So to recap, step 1 is sun, 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, accessibility to water, and ease of access to the garden. Those are the 3 components of location. The second step, so the idea that now you have the perfect location. Your garden is in the perfect space, it's east facing, and it has the right sun allocation that we need. So now it's, what kind of garden do you want? What layout do you want? And as I'm walking through the garden and showing how mine is set up, the idea that you want to start small, but you want to also give yourself an opportunity to expand, right? So we may start with one box, and later on we may add a second box. It can be pretty addicting, growing vegetables and having food in your backyard. So there's different types of gardens, right? So we have raised beds. I have some raised beds, and I will show what those are. I also have in containers, and I also have on ground. I plant directly onto the ground. So I have a hybrid of all 3. The containers and the raised beds have more pros. Well, they actually have all pros and cons. So some of the pros and some of the cons of raised beds in containers, the cons is that they dry out. They require a lot more water. You have to, because it just kind of escapes and it dries out a lot faster, you have to be more mindful to water more often. The pros, they look amazing. It's contained, it's bordered up, it's just aesthetically appealing to the eye. It looks amazing, and it's easy. You can just literally put borders, and you can put borders of any kind. You can do wood, you can do blocks, you can do rocks. You really can do anything you have around the house, and you can create your own little layout. And that way, visually, you're able to see what your planting space looks like, and then decide where you want your plants based on sun orientation and all of those wonderful things that we want to keep in mind. The other, to go back to the planting directly on the ground, that one is one of my favorite things, and you will see as I walk around my garden, I have a lot of that. Incorporating the garden into the landscape that you already have, really understanding the needs of the plant with regards to water, with regards to sun, and then planting in that space. The third step for having a successful garden is soil. So soil is truly the foundation of your garden. The success of your garden depends, on the quality of the soil that you have. Arizona soil is very clayish. That's great. That is really a strong foundation to begin. Clay, it's very compacted, so it retains water really well. A little too well, I would say, because a lot of the plants, they don't like to have soggy feet. So when the water doesn't drain very well, the roots may rot. So we want to add a component. We want to amend that great Arizona soil with a little bit of organic matter. We want to add some compost. We want to add some potting soil, something to mix it. I personally like 50-50. I like to really mix 50% of the native soil with 50% of the compost, and together I get the really nice compact particles that hold water and retain water really well, but also the compost and the organic matter, which allows for air to circulate, which keeps those, those good beneficial bacteria in there from drowning in the sogginess of the clayish soil. So compost improves the soil ecosystem, by which the organisms that contribute to the health of your plant, to the health of your garden. But what exactly is compost? Compost is the organic matter that decays and decomposes. The end result of compost is highly rich and highly nutrient soil. It's also free. It is environmentally friendly. Material which would otherwise go to the landfill, you're really keeping it somewhere in a garden or somewhere in the backyard where you are letting the natural process of decomposition happen. We compost so that we can divert so much of that waste that would contribute to the greenhouse effect due to the emission of the methane gases. If we can actually control some of that, and we can, why not do it? And then in the same time, have free compost, free soil amendment for our gardens. Again, it's environmentally friendly, reduces the waste. And the thing is that the biological process of composting, it's super simple. It requires 4 ingredients. It requires nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and water. Those are the things. So really the idea that the carbon is the browns, right? So the dry leaves, the hay, all of those things that are considered dead. The nitrogen are the fresh greens, the food scraps, the things that come out from your kitchen, the fresh yard trimmings. Those are the source of nitrogen. And then you just add a little water and you kind of toss it every now and then it just magically, the natural bacteria that love that environment begin to do their job to naturally decompose. And like I mentioned, the end result is amazing. It is really amazing, rich byproduct that you can then add to your garden beds, mixed in with the native soil. And you've done all of this by really saving and diverting waste from the landfill. So it's really a win-win-win. So now you have the perfect location, you have the garden layout, you have the perfect soil from compost that you've created. Now it's a matter of, what do you plant? Well, you plant what you love. You plant what you love to eat. In my household, my family, we love zucchini, we love watermelons, we love cucumbers, we love eggplant, we love cilantro, we love kale, we love just fresh veggies, and I have all of those, right? And we also have this, this chart which tell us what is in season. So in addition to planting what you love, you want to plant what's in season. You want to be in harmony with nature. You want to be planting those things that are drought tolerant, that are acclimated to our soil, so that they can have the more chance for bigger success. So we want to, we follow this timeline from the Maricopa County Garden Planting. This is a calendar that tells us the best time to plant, the best, whether to start from seed versus transplant. And if we follow this, it's pretty accurate. And just a few things that I can read that you can plant are beans, broccoli, corn. Those, the list is huge. But you plant according to the season that we have. Another thing you can plant are things that you're curious about. So you wonder, where does, bok choy come from? How does bok choy grow? And you can then plant bok choy. Actually, bok choy plants really well in this climate. So I don't have it, but I want to. When I first learned about Brussels sprouts, I was blown away. Brussels sprouts are one of the coolest things to grow. I've grown them about 3 different times. They're perfect for this soil, for this climate, and there is nothing, I can tell you, there's nothing in the world, and coming and seeing the plant just grow, and seeing the little buds just kind of sprout from the side, it's the coolest thing. It's one of the coolest things. Another component of what to plant is things that are expensive, right? So we go to the supermarket, we go to Whole Foods, or we go to Trader Joe's, or we go wherever we do our shopping, and we find that organic kale, super expensive, or organic this, super expensive. So the things that you love to eat but that are expensive, you want to plant those because you can then truly control what is going into that. You can truly tell that it's organic 100%, and you're saving money because it's going to be much more affordable to buy a little packet of seeds and plant them and grow for an entire season. That you can do that for $1.99, the little package of seeds, and grow for an entire season. Even with the water that you use and even with the labor you put in, it's still a much better deal. This final step is truly my favorite step. Why? Well, because this is the fun part. This is the final step is, how do you plant it, right? So this is where you get your hands dirty. This is where you interact with the soil. This is where you interact with the plants. This is where you begin to handle them. So yes, it is truly my favorite step. With how to plant it, you have 2 main ways to plant it. You can plant from seed, which is what I did here. I planted some seeds. I ordered my seeds from Native Seed Search. They come to me on the mail. I choose through their catalog. They arrive in the mail, and then I put them in my homemade organic and in my own container. And then I plant, 3-4 seeds, not knowing which ones are going to germinate. In this case, all of them did. So awesome. Thank you, Native Seed Search, for providing awesome seeds. So these are now considered transplants. I'm going to let them grow a little bit more before I put them in the soil. So I'm just going to keep them in this container. But the other thing is, these are transplants. So the benefit of a transplant is that you can expedite the process, the harvest, right? So you go to the nursery and you buy plants that have already been raised in a nursery, and you buy them and you bring them home and you plant them in your own garden. The plants are already a little bit more mature, they're well established, so there's no guessing if the seeds are going to sprout or not. And in this case, we have some zucchini, and they're marked what they are, and it's really cool. So I'm just going to demonstrate. So the other thing about how to plant it is you want to keep in mind space. Zucchinis are going to get huge, so you want to account for that when you're planting. You want to make sure that it's not a tiny space, because then it's really not going to have the room to grow and to expand its wings, right? You also want to consider companion planting. What are you planting your plant next to? Just like as humans, plants need friends. Those friends provide support. Those friends provide beneficial companionship that help to keep pests away, that help support each other with just providing either shade or collecting nitrogen from the environment. So many different little things that plants interact with each other. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate how to plant the zucchini. As you can see, I have already some onions in place, and the perfect location for me to plant the zucchini is gonna be right here, because it's gonna expand, it's gonna grow, and I'm just gonna be having so much fun coming in here in about maybe 6 weeks and harvesting my first zucchinis. How to plant, super simple. You want tiny little shovel. It has a name. I keep forgetting the name of this tiny shovel, so just call it tiny shovel for now. And you want to dig, and you kind of want to just kind of dig in a little circular motion. As I mentioned earlier, our Arizona soil is very clayish, so you can see it holds its shape really, really well. But I have added a lot of organic compost in here, so it's really well amended. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of digging around, and I want to create a hole that is just a little bit larger than the root ball that I have here. Then I'm going to go ahead and just gently squeeze around, and then I want to be very gentle with the stem. The stem is you know, it's where the energy from the roots gets transferred. So I want to make sure that I'm very gentle with the stems and not damage them in any way. When you take out your plant, you want to make sure that it's like this. The roots are very nicely wrapped around. And the reason we want to plant the hole, just or dig the hole a little bit deeper or wider than the root ball, is because we want to give those roots an opportunity to grow and expand without having to fight for space. So for this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and begin to plant it back. It's rained a lot, so right now my soil is pretty compact and clayish. And I'm just gonna gently pour back some of this soil. And compact it, and then I'm just gonna get some of the wood chips and cover the soil. Normally after this step I would water, because you know, just to give the plant a really good drink in its new home and in its new location. But I don't need to do that today because it's been raining and the soil is pretty wet. So this is, you know, as you saw, it's super not hard. Once you have the space, once you've determined the location, once you've determined the layout, once you have the great soil, once you picked your plants, how to plant them is actually the funnest and the easiest. I'm going to demonstrate how to plant onions. Onions are one of the simplest things that you can plant, and I do this in succession. Meaning I plant them in various stages of my season, because I eat onions every day in every meal, so I put them in everything. So the bulbs have this little seed component and they have this little tip. I'm just gonna, and I love to do those, to plant these at borders. So I'm just gonna dig a little bit here. I'm not gonna plant it too deep. I'm just gonna make a little tiny hole and drop my onion seed there, cover it, and it's done. It's really not rocket scientist. It's gardening is super forgiving. You will kill some plants, yes, you will. I've killed plenty of plants, but it's okay. This is how we learn. After you plant and after you have everything on the ground, you want to make sure that you have a really good journal where you indicate what you're planting and where you're planting it, and whether it was from seed or from transplant, because if you're anything like me, you're gonna forget. I think I have such a great memory, but I truly don't. The other component about planting is you want to add some flowers. Flowers bring in those beneficial pollinators that are seeking the nectar from the plant. So for this case, especially around tomatoes, you want to plant some of the goldberries. They bring in the butterflies, they bring in the bees, which are then going to pollinate your plants, which are going to turn into flower, and then they're going to turn into amazing fruit. So this is part of the companion planting. And you also want another component of companion planting is the three sisters. So the idea that you plant corn, squash and beans together. And those three plants, they benefit each other and they provide each other with beneficial support. The corn provides a stalk for the beans to wrap around. The beans bring in nitrogen from the environment and put it back in the roots for the corn to use, and the squash just provides covering throughout, so to keep the earth nice and moist and protect it from the sun. So everyone, I know I gave a lot of information. I know I went pretty fast on a lot of these things. I'm here for any questions that you may have. I'm not, super clever, and I've been able to do all of this. So if I can do it, you can do it. Have faith in yourself, and I am here for any questions that you may have. It's so much fun. And don't be afraid to experiment. It's like I said, gardening is pretty forgiving and it's very abundant. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. It's my first tutorial, so I ask for grace as well. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Go Devils.